What the Mafia boss did shocked them. Hazel held the lighter to the ultrasound photo, flames eating the image of her baby. 3 months pregnant. The father was marrying someone else in 2 weeks. She swept the ashes away. Decision made, she'd disappear. A knock. An older man at her door, steel gray hair, sharp eyes. Silas came. He saw her tears, smelled burned chemicals. You just destroyed something important. She broke. Told him everything. The secret love, the pregnancy, the engagement announcement. Does he know about the baby? No. What if he's being forced to marry her? Before we dive into this story, she should fight or disappear. The last ember died. Hazel swept the ashes into the trash with shaking hands and made a decision right there in her smoke-filled bathroom. She'd disappear, move to another city, raise this baby alone. She wouldn't be the woman who destroyed someone else's wedding, even though that someone had destroyed her entire world. She was wiping ash from the sink when someone pounded on her door. Hazel jumped, her heart racing. It was past midnight. Nobody knocked on her door at midnight. The pounding came again, harder. Miss, you okay in there? I'm seeing smoke alerts from this apartment. Hazel opened the door to find an older man, maybe 70, with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He was dressed expensively, standing in her hallway like he owned it. I'm fine. Just burn some papers. Hazel tried to close the door. The man's hand stopped it gently, but firmly. Silas came. I'm visiting my niece 2 floors down. Building security shows smoke from your unit. I wanted to make sure you weren't in danger. I'm not. Thank you for checking. You've been crying. Silas's voice was surprisingly gentle for someone who looked like he could break bones without effort. And that wasn't just paper you burned. That was a photograph. Medical grade paper. I can smell the chemicals. Hazel stared at this stranger who saw too much. Who are you really? Someone who recognizes devastation when he sees it. Silas met her eyes. I lost my wife and unborn child 40 years ago. I know that particular kind of grief. So I'll ask again, are you okay? Something about his blunt honesty, the way he didn't pretend or dance around the truth, made Hazel's carefully constructed walls crumble. No, I'm not okay, but I will be. Can I come in? Just for a minute. I promise I'm not a threat. Against every instinct screaming at her not to let a strange man into her apartment at midnight, Hazel stepped aside. Maybe it was pregnancy hormones. Maybe it was desperate need to tell someone the truth. Maybe she just didn't have the energy to keep lying. They sat at her tiny kitchen table. Silas waited while Hazel made tea with trembling hands. Then the whole story poured out like poison she'd been holding in too long. About Damien Shaw. About 6 months of secret relationship because he said he needed to handle some things first. About believing him when he traced patterns on her skin and whispered about their future. About the pregnancy test 2 weeks ago that should have been joy but felt like catastrophe. About this morning's announcement that he was marrying someone else. About burning the ultrasound because she couldn't bear to look at proof of her mistake. When she finished, Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, does he know about the baby? No, and he won't. Hazel's voice was firm, even though her hand shook. He made his choice. I'm not going to be the scandal that ruins his perfect wedding. What if he didn't make a choice? Silas leaned forward. What if circumstances made it for him? I've seen this before. Powerful families arranging marriages like business transactions. Young men pressured into engagements because of debt or obligation or family expectations. Then that's his problem to solve. Not mine. Hazel wiped her eyes. I won't be the woman who shows up pregnant and desperate, begging him to choose me. I have more pride than that. Pride doesn't raise a baby alone. I'll manage. I've managed worse. Silas studied her with those 2 knowing eyes. What if I told you I could find out the truth? About why he's really marrying this woman? About whether he wants this wedding or if he's as trapped as you feel? Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Because 40 years ago, nobody helped me. Nobody investigated when my wife died in what they called an accident. Nobody questioned the convenient timing of her death right after she told me she was pregnant. By the time I had enough power to dig into the truth, it was too late. The people responsible were already dead or disappeared. Silas's voice went hard. I spent 4 decades building an empire on the ashes of what I lost. Made myself so powerful that nobody could ever hurt me again. But power without purpose is just a different kind of prison. So I'm your purpose now? Hazel didn't bother hiding her skepticism. Maybe, or maybe I'm just an old man trying to do one good thing before I die. Does it matter? What if you find out he really does want to marry her? That I was just a distraction while he waited for the right woman to come along? Then you'll know the truth, and you can move forward without wondering what if. Silas stood. But if he's being forced into this marriage, if there's more to the story, don't you think you deserve to know before you disappear? Hazel wanted to say no, wanted to tell this stranger to leave and take his impossible offer with him. But a small voice in her head whispered what if? What if Damien was trapped? What if there was an explanation that made sense of the past 6 months? She heard herself say okay, find out the truth. But I'm not making any promises about what I'll do with the information. Fair enough. Silas headed for the door. I'll be in touch. Wait. Hazel stopped him. Why are you really doing this? And don't give me the redemption speech again. Silas turned back, his weathered face softening. Because I saw you burning that ultrasound. So you destroy evidence of your child like it was a problem to be erased. And it reminded me of the moment I realized my wife and baby were gone forever. The moment I understood that love doesn't make you weak, losing it does. I don't want you to spend the next 40 years hardening yourself against the world because one man broke your heart. I barely know you, and you loved a man who lied to you for 6 months. Maybe trusting strangers is exactly what you need right now. Silas left before she could respond. Hazel sat alone in her apartment, smoke still lingering in the air, ashes in her trash can, and a baby growing inside her that nobody knew about except an old Mafia boss who'd appeared out of nowhere offering impossible help. She put her hand on her still flat stomach and whispered, I don't know what I'm doing, but I promise I'll figure it out. Outside her building, Silas Kane pulled out his phone and made a call. I need everything on Damien Shaw and the right family. Employment records, financial records, family connections, why this wedding is happening. I want to know every secret they're hiding. And I want it in 48 hours. The voice on the other end asked why this mattered. Silas looked up at Hazel's apartment window, still lit at this late hour. Because sometimes the right thing requires clearing the path for people too hurt to see another way exists. Now get me that information. Over the next 9 days, Silas Kane moved like a ghost through Damien Shaw's world. He started at the law firm where Damien worked, walked in wearing a $1,000 suit, and introduced himself as a potential client interested in corporate litigation. The receptionist escorted him to Damien's office immediately. Money talked, and Silas had plenty of it. Damien Shaw looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, tie loosened, papers scattered across his desk like he'd been drowning in work. He stood to shake Silas's hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Kane, thank you for coming in. What can I help you with today? Silas spent 30 minutes discussing a fictional business dispute, watching Damien's face the entire time. Watched him go through the motions professionally, but mechanically. Watched him check his phone twice, his expression tightening each time. Watched him rub his temples like his head was splitting. You getting married soon? Silas asked casually, gesturing to the wedding planner magazine barely hidden under a file folder. 2 weeks. Damien's smile turned forced. Cassandra Wright, you might have seen the announcement. Congratulations. You look thrilled. Something flickered across Damien's face. Frustration maybe, or resignation. It's a big step. A lot of moving pieces to coordinate. I've been married. Silas leaned back. Lost my wife young. Best advice I can give you. Don't marry someone unless you take a bullet for them without thinking twice. Because marriage is hard enough when you love someone. It's impossible when you don't. Damien's professional mask cracked for just a second. Then he recovered, thanked Silas for his time, and said he'd have his assistant send over the contract paperwork. Silas left knowing everything he needed to know. That young man was walking toward a wedding he didn't want, carrying weight that was crushing him. Next, Silas had his people dig into Cassandra Wright. What they found was explosive. She was 12 weeks pregnant. Medical records obtained through methods Silas didn't ask about confirmed it. The father wasn't Damien Shaw. The timeline didn't match. They'd only been publicly dating for 3 months. More digging revealed the real father. Brett Lancaster, son of one of the Wright family's biggest business rivals. Cassandra and Brett had been secretly involved for over a year. When she got pregnant, her family went into crisis mode. The Wright reputation couldn't survive their daughter having a child out of wedlock with a Lancaster. It would destroy business relationships, tank stock prices, become tabloid fodder for months. So they'd arrange a solution. Find a respectable young man, offer him something he couldn't refuse, and make the problem disappear under a society wedding. Damien Shaw fit perfectly. Brilliant lawyer from a working-class background, drowning in student debt from 3 degrees. His father had medical bills from cancer treatment. His younger sister needed money for college. The Wright family had offered him a senior partnership track, debt forgiveness, and a generous salary in exchange for marrying their daughter and claiming the baby as his own. Silas read the reports in his office and felt rage burn through his chest. They bought Damien like he was merchandise, trapped him with obligations he couldn't escape, made him choose between his own happiness and his family's survival. He called Hazel. Found out anything? Her voice was careful, guarded. Everything. Can I come over? An hour later, Silas sat in Hazel's apartment laying out the truth. Showed her the evidence, the timeline, the financial arrangements. Watched her face go from disbelief to horror to something harder. He sold himself. Hazel's voice was hollow. For money. He sold himself for his family. Silas corrected. There's a difference. His father was dying. His sister couldn't afford college. The Wright family offered him a way to save everyone he loved. What would you have done in his position? Not lie to someone I claimed to love for 6 months. Did he lie, or did he just not know how to tell you he was being forced into an impossible choice? Silas leaned forward. I'm not excusing what he did, but I've lived long enough to know that good people make terrible decisions when they're desperate. The question is, what do you want to do with this information? What can I do? He's marrying her in 5 days. The invitations are sent. The venue is booked. Her family has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. Me showing up pregnant isn't going to change anything except make me look desperate and pathetic. What if you didn't show up alone? Hazel looked at him sharply. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that sometimes the truth needs a bigger voice than one heartbroken woman can provide. I'm suggesting that the Wright family has built this wedding on lies and manipulation, and maybe it's time someone tore down their carefully constructed story. You want to ruin the wedding. I want to give people a choice. Silas's voice was steel. Right now, Damien thinks he has to marry Cassandra to save his family. Cassandra is trapped pretending to love a man she doesn't want. Brett Lancaster is somewhere watching the woman he loves marry someone else. And you're burning ultrasound photos in your bathroom at midnight. Everyone's suffering because the Wright family decided their reputation matters more than human lives. So what's your plan? My plan is to attend that wedding as a guest. I know the Wright family through business connections. I can get us in. And when the priest asks if anyone objects, I'm going to stand up and tell the truth. All of it. Hazel felt her pulse race. They'll destroy you. The Wright family has power, connections. I'm 70 years old, and I've survived 5 assassination attempts, 2 federal investigations, and 40 years in the Mafia. The Wright family doesn't scare me. Silas's smile was cold. But I'm not doing this without your permission. This is your life, your baby, your choice. If you want to disappear and handle this alone, I'll respect that. But if you want to fight, if you want Damien to know the truth and make his own choice with all the information, then I'll stand beside you. Why? Hazel's voice broke. Why do you care this much about people you don't even know? Because I didn't have anyone to fight for me when I needed it most. Silas's voice went quiet. When my wife died, when I lost my child, I was young and powerless. I couldn't demand answers or justice or truth. I just had to accept what the powerful people told me and live with the grief. It took me years to build enough power to even ask questions, and by then it was too late. I won't watch history repeat itself. I won't watch you lose everything because powerful people decided your happiness doesn't matter. Tears streamed down Hazel's face. What if he chooses her anyway? What if knowing about the baby doesn't change anything? Then you'll know, and you can walk away with your head high knowing you gave him a chance to choose. That's more than most people get. Hazel looked down at her stomach, at the baby nobody knew about except this strange old gangster who'd walked in her life like an avenging angel. She thought about Damien, about 6 months of stolen moments and whispered promises, about whether any of it had been real or if she'd been fooling herself the whole time. Okay, her voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her. I'll go to the wedding. I'll let you tell the truth, but I'm not begging him to choose me. If he wants this marriage after knowing everything, then I walk away and never look back. Fair enough. Silas stood. The wedding is Saturday at 2 p.m. I'll pick you up at noon. We're something that makes you feel powerful. You're going to need it. After he left, Hazel sat at her apartment trying to process what she'd just agreed to. In 5 days, she'd walk into a church full of wealthy, powerful people and watch the truth explode like a bomb. Watch Damien's face when he learned about the baby. Watch the right family scramble to control the damage. She was terrified, but underneath the fear was something else. Something that felt almost like hope. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, the kind of sunny afternoon that mocked Hazel's terror. She stood in front of her closet at 11 a.m., hands shaking as she tried to pick something to wear to the wedding where she'd either get her life back or lose it forever. Silas showed up at her door at 11:30 with his niece Clara, a woman in her 60s carrying a garment bag and a makeup kit. You're not wearing anything from your closet. Clara swept past Hazel into the apartment. My brother told me everything. You're walking into a room full of vultures, so you're going to look like a queen. Sit down. For the next 30 minutes, Clara worked magic. She dressed Hazel in a deep navy dress that somehow accommodated her barely showing pregnancy, while making her look elegant and powerful. Did her makeup to hide the evidence of sleepless nights. Styled her hair into something sophisticated. When Hazel looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. I look like I belong there. You do belong there. You're carrying that man's child. That gives you more right to be in that church than half the people attending. Clara packed up her supplies. Now go make them all regret underestimating you. The church was massive, all white stone and stained glass windows that caught the sunlight. Luxury cars lined the street. Photographers clustered outside. Inside, the pews were filled with people dripping in diamonds and designer clothes. All of them there to witness the wedding of the year. Silas guided Hazel to a seat 4 rows from the front. Close enough to see everything, far enough back to not be immediately obvious. She could see Damien at the altar, his back rigid, hands clasped in front of him. Even from behind, he looked like a man facing execution. The ceremony started. Music swelled. Cassandra walked down the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than Hazel earned in a year. Her father's arm linked through hers, her face a mask of practiced serenity. But Hazel saw the truth underneath, saw the fear in Cassandra's eyes, the way her hand trembled on the bouquet. 2 people trapped in a lie, walking toward a future neither of them wanted. Cassandra reached the altar. The priest began the ceremony with traditional words about love and commitment and forever. Hazel felt sick. This was insane. She shouldn't be here. What right did she have to blow up these people's lives? Then Damien turned slightly to take Cassandra's hand, and his eyes swept the crowd. They landed on Hazel, and everything stopped. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened slightly in shock. His hand froze halfway to Cassandra's. He saw her, actually saw her, and the devastation in his eyes told Hazel everything she needed to know about whether their 6 months together had been real. The priest continued talking, oblivious to the silent earthquake happening at the altar. Damien tore his eyes away from Hazel, face forward, but his whole body was trembling now. The ceremony proceeded. Vows were spoken in voices that sounded hollow. Rings were produced. The priest smiled benevolently and asked the question that would change everything. If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace. Silence stretched. Hazel's heart hammered so hard she thought everyone could hear it. This was the moment. Silas was supposed to stand up now, supposed to reveal the truth. But it was Damien who spoke first. I object. His voice rang through the stunned church. I object to this entire wedding. Gasping erupted through the pews. Cassandra stumbled back, her bouquet falling. The priest looked confused. Cassandra's father started to stand, face red with fury. Damien turned to face the crowd, his eyes finding Hazel's again. I object because I've been lying. To everyone in this room, to Cassandra, to myself. This wedding is a business arrangement. The Wright family offered me money and a career in exchange for marrying their daughter and claiming her baby as mine. A baby that isn't mine. That belongs to someone else. The church erupted. Shouts, gasps, people pulling out phones. Cassandra's mother screamed something. Security started moving. But Damien kept talking, his voice gaining strength. I agreed to this arrangement because I was desperate. Because my father was dying and I couldn't pay his medical bills. Because my sister needed college money I didn't have. Because the Wright family made me an offer I felt I couldn't refuse. But I should have refused. Because there's someone else. Someone I love. Someone I lied to and hurt. Because I was a coward who chose money over everything that actually mattered. His eyes never left Hazel's face. I don't know if she's here. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me. But I can't stand at this altar and make promises to someone I don't love while the woman I do love is out there somewhere thinking I chose this. Thinking I wanted this. Silas leaned close to Hazel and whispered, he doesn't know about the baby yet. You want him to? Hazel stood on shaking legs. The movement drew every eye in the church. Damien's face transformed when he saw her rise, hope and fear warring across his features. I'm here. Her voice carried through the silent church. And you're right, you hurt me. You lied to me for 6 months. Made me believe we had a future while you were planning a wedding to someone else. Hazel, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you. Then you should have. Hazel's voice was steel, even as tears ran down her face. You should have told me you were trapped. You should have trusted me to understand. Instead, I found out from a society announcement online that the man I loved was marrying an heiress in 2 weeks. I was ashamed. Damien stepped away from the altar, moving toward her. I was ashamed that I'd sold myself, that I'd chosen money over you. I convinced myself I was doing the noble thing, sacrificing my happiness to save my family. But all I did was destroy the only good thing in my life. You destroyed more than that. Hazel put her hand on her stomach. You destroyed our chance to build a family together, to raise the baby I'm carrying. Your baby. The church went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Damien stopped midway down the aisle, his face going white. What? I'm 3 months pregnant. Hazel's voice broke. I found out 2 weeks before your engagement announcement. I was going to tell you, was planning this whole romantic reveal. Then I saw you were marrying someone else, and I realized I was just a side piece in your real life. So I burned the ultrasound photo and decided to disappear. Decided I'd rather raise our child alone than be the scandal that ruined your perfect wedding. Damien looked like he'd been punched. A baby. We're having a baby. I'm having a baby. Hazel corrected. You're having a wife and a career and a life I don't fit into. No. Damien started moving again, pushing past guests to reach her. No, you're wrong. I don't want any of this. The career, the money, the arrangement. I'd give it all back right now for a chance to fix what I broke. I love you, Hazel. I've loved you since the first night we spent talking until sunrise about everything and nothing. I loved you every time I lied to you, and it killed me. And I love you now, standing here pregnant with my child, looking at me like I'm the biggest mistake you ever made. You are. Tears streamed down her face. You broke my heart. Then let me spend the rest of my life putting it back together. Damien reached her, dropped to his knees right there in the church aisle. I'm begging you. Give me a chance to prove I choose you. That I choose us. That I choose our baby over everything else. Hazel looked down at him. This man who destroyed her and was now offering everything. She thought about the past 6 months, about whether any of it had been real. And she saw the answer in his eyes. It had all been real. He'd just been too weak and scared to fight for it. She thought about their baby, about whether she wanted to raise a child alone or give them a father who was flawed but trying. Before she could answer, Cassandra's voice cut through the moment. Stop. Everyone turned. Cassandra stood at the altar, her face tear-streaked but determined. This is my fault too. I'll let my family trap him. Let them use his desperation to solve my problem. She looked at the crowd, at her horrified parents. I'm pregnant with Brett Lancaster's baby. We've been together for over a year. I love him, but my family said it would destroy our reputation, our business relationships, everything. So they found Damien and made him an offer designed to exploit his situation. Her father tried to grab her arm, but Cassandra yanked free. I'm done lying. I'm done with this wedding, this arrangement, all of it. She pulled off her veil and threw it on the ground. Brett, if you're here, if you still love me despite everything, I choose you. I choose our baby. I choose truth over my family's reputation. From the back of the church, a young man stood up. Brett Lancaster, looking shell-shocked. I'm here. I've always been here. Cassandra ran down the aisle straight into his arms. Her parents screamed. Guests pulled out phones recording everything. Security didn't know who to restrain first. And in the middle of the chaos, Damien was still on his knees in front of Hazel, waiting for an answer that would determine both their futures. Hazel looked down at Damien on his knees in the aisle, chaos erupting around them, cameras flashing, people shouting, and made a choice that terrified her. She held out her hand. Get up. Damien stood slowly, hope and fear warring on his face. Does that mean? It means we're leaving. Hazel's voice was firm. Right now, before your almost-in-laws of security throw us out or this circus gets worse. She turned and walked toward the exit. Damien followed without hesitation, his hand finding hers. They passed Cassandra and Brett wrapped in each other's arms, past the Wright family screaming at each other, past guests recording everything on their phones. At the door, Hazel paused and looked back at Silas, still sitting calmly in his pew like he was watching a show he directed. Thank you. She mouthed the words. Silas nodded once, a small smile on his weathered face. Then Hazel and Damien were outside in the sunshine, running down the church steps while photographers shouted questions and camera flashes exploded around them. They didn't stop until they reached the parking lot. Damien pulled out his keys with shaking hands. My car. We can go anywhere. Just tell me where. My apartment. We need to talk. Actually talk. No more lies. No more secrets. Hazel met his eyes. You get one chance to explain everything. And if I don't like what I hear, you leave and we figure out co-parenting arrangements through lawyers. Understood? Understood. The drive to her apartment was silent, both of them processing what had just happened. Inside, Hazel made tea while Damien paced her small living room like a caged animal. Sit down. You're making me nervous. He sat, started talking, told her everything about his father's cancer diagnosis 2 years ago, the medical bills that buried him, his mother working 3 jobs trying to help, his sister's college acceptance letter that came with no way to pay. About the Wright family's lawyers approaching him 6 months ago with an offer that seemed like salvation. Marry Cassandra, claim her baby, get a partnership track, and enough money to save everyone he loved. I told him I was seeing someone, that I needed time to end it properly. Damien's voice broke. They gave me 2 months. Said after that, the offer expired. I kept trying to find another way, kept hoping something would change. But my dad got worse, the bills kept piling up, and I ran out of time. So I said yes to their arrangement and told myself I was being noble, sacrificing my happiness for my family. You were being a coward. Hazel's voice was hard. Noble would have been telling me the truth, letting me decide if I wanted to fight for us or walk away. Instead, you made the choice for both of us. You're right. I was a coward. I was terrified of losing you, terrified of disappointing my family, terrified of everything. So I lied, kept both worlds separate, and told myself I could figure it out. By the time I realized I couldn't, it was too late. The engagement was announced, and I thought I'd already lost you forever. You had. Hazel put her hand on her stomach. Until about 5 minutes ago, when you burned your entire life down in front of 200 people. Was it enough? Damien moved to kneel in front of her chair. Is it enough for you to give me another chance? Because I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to. I'll figure out my family's bills another way. I'll do whatever it takes to prove I choose you and our baby over everything else. How's your father? Hazel asked suddenly. Damien blinked at the subject change. He died 3 months ago. The treatments didn't work. I'm sorry. Did the right money at least give you time with him? Yeah. Those extra months, being able to afford the good hospice care, having him comfortable at the end, that came from their money. Damien's voice was hollow, but he died thinking I was marrying someone I loved. Died believing I was going to be happy. I couldn't tell him the truth. Couldn't let him know I'd sold myself to pay his medical bills. And your sister? Starts college in the fall. Full scholarship to Columbia. Damien smiled slightly. She earned it herself. Turns out I didn't need to sell my soul for her after all. What about the right family? They're not going to just let you walk away from this arrangement. You embarrass them in front of everyone they know. Let them come after me. Damien's voice was steel. I don't care anymore. They can sue me, blacklist me, whatever they want. I'm done being owned by people who think money entitles them to control other people's lives. You'll lose everything. Your job, your reputation, probably end up in debt again from legal fees. Then I'll start over. Damien took her hands. With you, if you'll let me. We'll figure it out together. I'll work anywhere doing anything. I don't need the fancy career or the money or any of it. I just need you. Hazel studied his face, looking for lies or hesitation. Found only desperate sincerity. What about the baby? Are you ready to be a father? Because this isn't theoretical anymore. In 6 months, we're going to have a child who needs us to have our lives together. I'm terrified, Damien admitted. I don't know anything about being a father. My own dad was great when he was sober, terrible when he wasn't. I don't have money saved or a stable job anymore or any of the things you're supposed to have before becoming a parent. But I want this. Want you, want our baby, want the chance to build a family with you, even if I have no idea what I'm doing. That's the first completely honest thing you've said to me in 6 months. Hazel felt something loosen in her chest. The fear, the anger, the hurt. It was all still there, but underneath was the love that had never really died. I can't promise I forgive you. That's going to take time. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. I know, and I can't promise this is going to work. We might try and fail and end up co-parenting separately. I know that too, but I'm willing to try. Hazel's voice softened. Because you're right. What we had was real. And our baby deserves parents who at least try to make it work before giving up. Damien pulled her into his arms, held her like she was everything. Thank you. God, thank you for giving me another chance. They sat together on her worn couch, processing everything that had happened. Then Hazel's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Silas's voice came through. Just checking you made it home safely. We did. Thank you. For everything. I don't know how to repay. You don't repay it. You live well. You build a good life with that young man and your baby. That's payment enough. Silas paused. I'm having my lawyers send you something. Consider it a baby gift from an old man who never got to be a grandfather. Silas, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because 40 years ago, nobody helped me. Nobody fought for my wife or my child or gave me a chance to know the truth. I can't change my past, but I can make sure your future is better. So accept the gift gracefully and name your baby something with strength. This world needs strong people. He hung up before Hazel could respond. 3 days later, an envelope arrived. Inside was a check for $200,000 and a note in shaky handwriting. For medical bills, baby supplies, and starting over. Build something beautiful. SK. Hazel cried holding that check, understanding that Silas had given them what he never had. A second chance, financial security, and hope for the future. 6 months later, Hazel gave birth to a healthy baby girl. They named her Eliana, meaning God has answered. Damien was there for every moment, holding Hazel's hand through labor, crying when he first held his daughter, looking at both of them like they were miracles. He'd found work at a smaller law firm, one that valued ethics over profit. The pay was less, but the work was honest. They lived in Hazel's small apartment, barely making ends meet some months, but they were together. They were happy. Cassandra married Brett in a quiet ceremony 6 months after the church disaster. She'd been disowned by her family, but didn't seem to care. They had a son and sent Hazel and Damien a photo with a note. Thank you for having the courage we didn't. You saved us too. And Silas Kane passed away peacefully 2 years later. His niece Clara called to tell them. Said he talked about them often in his final months, called them his redemption. At his funeral, Hazel stood in the back with Damien and 2-year-old Eliana, silently thanking the unlikely angel who taught her that salvation sometimes comes from the darkest places, that one act of selfless kindness can ripple outward, creating circles of love that extend far beyond what we can see. Years later, when Eliana asked how Mommy and Daddy met, Hazel would smile and say Daddy made a big mistake, but found the courage to fix it. And Damien would add that a very wise man taught him that love is worth fighting for, even when you're terrified. They never told her about the burned ultrasound, or the wedding that exploded, or the 70-year-old mafia boss who saw a broken woman and decided to help. Some stories were too complicated for children, but they lived the lesson every day. Chose honesty over comfort. Chose love over fear. Chose each other again and again, building something beautiful from the ashes of what almost was. From burned ultrasound to beautiful family, from lies to truth, from broken hearts to unbreakable bond. This story proves that sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest futures. One mafia boss's choice to help changed everything. Want more stories of redemption, second chances, and hit you hardest? More incredible stories